All right, welcome to Stay Treat number 24. Incredible, 24. And I love all multiples of three. So next year there's going to be three Stay Treats. So I can always stay in the multiples of three. Crazy me. But it's my greatest pleasure to introduce Bonnie Zink today. We've known each other for years. We were both in the Professional Writers Association of Canada for a long time. And that was a fabulous way to meet other colleagues in the field. Bonnie is amazing. She's all about amplifying diverse voices. As the co founder of KM and the AM, Saskatchewan, Canada, Bonnie helps connect knowledge professionals across sectors. So if you're ready to see Gen AI, how it can supercharge your creative or nonfiction projects, Bonnie is your sure footed guide. Dive into the future of writing. For over 20 years, Bonnie's been the ultimate knowledge matchmaker, connecting people with the information they need to create real change. Whether it's helping communities thrive or navigating social challenges, she ensures knowledge gets into the right hands at the right time. And just when you couldn't imagine that she could be any more cutting edge, along comes Gen AI. She's here to show you how this tech can take your nonfiction or creative writing to the next level. Think of Gen I, as your co-writer who never needs coffee breaks and always has a fresh idea. So welcome, Bonnie. Take it away.
Thank you, ma'am. Like Rusty said, we are dating ourselves because we have been in each other's orbits for a long, long time. I recently found out that Rusty also sews. I sew, I knit, as I mentioned before. Most of my life is in the creative realm. I was published when I was a young kid, around 10, and seeing my name in print never got old. So what did I do as I grew up? I brought writing into absolutely everything I do, including my professional life. I have a political science degree with a focus on English literature, which taught me how to think within the box and ask the right questions. So I am now a policy analyst and a writer for academics. I take what they write and I make it understandable by everybody in the normal world, which is a very interesting career choice. It's a lot of reading and a lot of writing, and that's what my days are filled with. And when I get tired of reading and writing, I knit or I sew. I have a sewing machine in almost every room of my house. So I would like to say thank you to Rusty for inviting me to participate today. This is an excellent way to spend my day. Like I said before, you guys have some really fantastic words coming out of your experiences, and I appreciate each and every one of them. So before we dive in, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm presenting from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. We are in the middle of a blizzard right now, which makes my heart happy because I love snow. We are situated on Treaty 6 territory, which is the homeland of the Métis. I respect the histories, the languages, and the cultures of First Nations and Métis and the Inuit, whose presence continues to enrich our communities. This session, like Rusty said, is being recorded. So here's a tip. If you don't want to be acknowledged in the recording, take a moment, change your name to guest, and turn your video off. And that will keep you anonymous, but you'll still be able to engage with the content that I'm about to give you. And also feel free to ask questions in the chat at any time. Rusty, I'm going to ask you to follow along with that for me, and then just kind of interject whenever, whenever my screen's doing a funny thing here. Ah, there we go. Hopefully you can see the first slide that says AI in writing, supercharging your creativity and productivity. And we're going to jump right into it. We only have a few minutes here. So let's start with a quick overview of what AI is. It's really just a smart assistant. For our purposes, it just assists us in what we do. It can't replace us. It can't be us. It can't even talk like us. What it is, it's a predictive model. So if you think of your cell phone, when it gives you those choices of what comes next, that's AI. So we've actually been using it for many years already. It's just now coming into a new phase of what it can do in its create it. Well, I wouldn't even say it creates, it predicts. So if you give it a lot of data, like one of your stories, and you give it some parameters, like maybe you have a comma splice problem. You can ask it to fix those errors. Maybe you feel like you're long-winded and you have a word count that you need to work within. Once you write your draft, you can give it to something like ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude, and it will actually fit your writing, take your writing and fit it within those parameters. So something that took you hours to do previously, they can do in minutes. And I usually tell people that I coach about AI is that I can save them a full day's work each week by teaching them how to use these tools. It will also serve as your sounding board. So if you're stuck on some ideas, maybe you're not sure which character you want to work on or what the character should be, you can bounce those ideas back and forth with AI. There is Chat GPT, there's chat in there for a reason. This is a new way to converse with your material. Like you're actually give you something, you ask questions, or you tell it what you want, or you guide it. It's just a tool, like any other tool that we use, like a pen. A pen can't stand up and write something brilliant on its own. It needs your hand to do that. And so AI is the exact same way. So if you think of it in terms of the three A's, which is what I like to think of it like, AI will augment what you already do. It will help you get better. It can automate some of the tasks you don't like to do. Like maybe proofreading isn't your favorite thing to do. I know it's not mine. So I use it as a proofreader quite often. Maybe analyzing to learn. So if you want to get better and analyze your work, AI can help you do that. In fact, I do that all the time. So that is the reason why I requested that Rusty actually record this for us, because I will take the recording and I will use AI to pull out some analysis. How can I get better? What words am I using that are overused, overtired? Maybe, I use a lot of ums. I know that, and I'm trying to get better at that. AI is helping me do that. So once you figure out how to use it to address all of those things you don't like to do, guess what? You have more time to write. And that's really what we all want to do, right? So I know some of you might feel like a little bit wary about AI, and that's understandable. It's okay. It's a new technology. We don't understand how it's going to help us, or how no one understands it at this point. We are in the Wild West. I don't know how many of you remember back in the day when computers and the internet just started coming into our homes. We were scared about it then too. So it's let's talk about some of those fears. So some of the things that I've heard from people, it's going to take my job. So if AI can write stuff, what's my role? Why am I here to tell my story if AI can tell it for me? Well, first of all, it cannot do that. What it can do is it can address the mechanics of your story, of your writing. It can, at times, come up with something, and I'll show you an example of that in a little bit. But it can't replace your unique voice. It doesn't have your experiences. It doesn't have your heart. It doesn't have your soul. It doesn't have your creativity. That's you. That's what you have to bring to your work. And honestly, no one as you know, as you guys were talking about your writing earlier, and Rusty was really good at bringing out the bits that we were connecting with, and the things that we were connecting with weren't just the words. It was that humanity. It was your experience. It was you being put into those words and how you combine those words to tell a story. That's what we connect with. No AI can actually reproduce that at this point. And I don't think it will, because our brains and our souls work together to bring this whole package to the page. And those of us who have the skill with words, that's why we write, and AI cannot take that away from us. But it can do something like help you find different ways of saying synergistic paradigm, an academic buzzword that nobody really likes. So we can quickly use AI, ChatGPT, or Microsoft Copilot to find new terms to use. Give that a try. Load up ChatGPT in your browser and give it a try and see what it gives you. Here's the other thing about all these AI tools. We can all put in the same exact prompt and it will give us different outputs. It doesn't replicate itself very well, which is kind of a plus in some ways. Okay, so we talked about a little bit about these tools. We don't have a lot of time, so I'm not, at the end, there's a link where you can go to check out some of the tools I use in my daily writing practice. But I'd really like to focus on just, bringing you into the AI waters slowly. So here's a couple of tips. The first tip I have is when you use an AI tool, like any other tool, have clear goals in mind. What do you want it to do for you? And the more information you give it, the better the output. Now, we've used the word prompts here before, with the quotes and things that Rusty gives us in those writing prompts. They, that's what you're going to give AI. And it's going to follow a certain, pattern. You're going to tell it, you can actually have it do role play. You can say, you are a copywriter with 20 years worth of experience, and I need you to come up with 10 different creative and engaging titles for this story that I've written. Here's the story. And it will do that. And the more you actually engage with AI like that, the better the stuff you're going to get. But you have to make the choice. It's you, and you can take what it gives you, and sometimes it'll spark a different idea. And that's the real value of using AI, is to help you spark that creativity. Here's
Bonnie,
the, yeah,
Bill has a question. Is it not possible that when I submit my writing to an AI platform, it now has my body of work incorporated into the vast knowledge or storage of AI, and my body of work gets lost, absorbed, or overwritten?
no, it doesn't.
Okay.
Because you can turn, so AI is, you're right, Bill, it's trained on a vast amount of information that's on the internet, anything that's publicly available right now. ChatGPT, I believe, has been trained up till 2022, everything that was on the internet. So if you have anything public on the internet, including Facebook groups, if you participate in Facebook groups, if you participate, or if you have a LinkedIn profile that's public or a web page, yes, AI already knows how you write, and that's been used to train it. Now, when you use these tools like ChatGPT, you can go into the settings and turn that off. And so everything you give it is now private. Microsoft Copilot has privacy down to a science. It's probably one of the most secure, but the rest are following along. The problem today is that now we have legislation, we have policies that are starting to be considered. None of them are very good. Most universities have policies about using AI and how to be transparent with it. The EU, the European Union, has a really good legislation policy in place that's governing how AI is getting used, but it doesn't go far enough. Remember, things don't get legislated or dealt with in our governments very quickly. They're usually about 10 years behind the ball. And
So if
again,
I can
we're in
recap,
the
so if I can recap what you said, is that anything we put in now is not part of its body of knowledge and won't be absorbed into it. It's only using what was there before 2022.
yeah. And
Okay.
each one's been trained on a different set of data on the internet. So the data is the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Any chat we've ever had, any YouTube video we've engaged with, any comment we've put out there. I would even argue that in some cases, emails
Mm-hmm.
are swooped up in that data. And the internet's a vast place. It's huge. It's a great big, unregulated piece of information. It's everything that we know as a human is on the internet at this moment.
Mm.
And that's what these large language models are really good at, is sifting through all of that data, those large amounts of data. Now, it's true. I can say, write me a short story in the style of Stephen King. I can do that because there's a lot of Stephen King information out there. I don't think it'll do the same if I ask it to write it in the style of Rusty Lehave. I don't think it'll do the same because you don't have that much out there.
It would be interesting because
Um,
I did a lot of videos Friday. They were called
that's
Friday Writing Challenges on YouTube, starting in March of 2020. So it would be interesting to try to feed in some prompts to ChatGPT, and if it actually came back with my own, ideas from that. Well,
I'd like to see you do that, do an exercise like that.
okay.
And now with ChatGPT and Gemini to a certain extent, you can actually have them remember your conversations so they learn and grow on what you give them, not what the internet gives them. So I've been using ChatGPT long enough that it knows what I talk about. It knows how I talk about it. So it's pretty good at giving me what I'm asking for it in my voice. It's because I've been using it for 18 months or so now. And I use it daily and I use it for different things. And I try to break it. And I try to expand it. That's who I am. I love technology and I jump in the deep end and see what comes out the other side. But that's the other tip I have for you. You know what? Play with it. Figure it out. Make it work for you because you can literally save yourself 8 hours a week minimum by using these tools to help you out. And remember, it can't replace you. That's never going to happen. Here's a nice little stat for you. So AI does tend to want to please you. It wants to make you happy. So it will come up with stuff that's not actually true. So you always have to check it. You always have to. In fact, you can even ask it how it came to a conclusion it came to. So lots of really fun things you can do with prompting with AIs that um, become a story in themselves. So here's a stat: AI is probably about 95% correct. You always have to keep that in mind, but it's 100% confident. It will convince you that what it's telling you is the truth when it actually isn't. There's been many examples of people who have asked it for dietary advice and it came back with, well, you should eat rocks. Well, no one should eat rocks, right? So you have to figure that out for yourself. And by using that, but it's like any other tool, right? It's not the tool's fault when it goes wrong. So always be very careful on how you use the output. Never use it as is. Never take what ChatGPT tells you and copy and paste it somewhere else. Never do that. Always edit it and make it sound like you and make sure that you're confident with the information you're putting out there.
Barbara asked
Okay,
a
so here's
question on what's an example of coming up with something that is not true.
okay, so when I first started using ChatGPT, I wrote a book about AI prompting for academics to teach them how to prompt, which I'll send to Rusty and she can actually distribute that to you guys to help you get started. So I asked it from a knowledge mobilization perspective what this book should be. So it gave me a really good outline. The book looks nothing like it did back then, but I also asked it to give me several sources on different concepts. I asked it what concept should be sourced. It gave me a really good list of information that I should source. So that when I asked it for the sources, it gave me some wonderful sources, some beautiful summaries for those sources. But when you click through the link, the source didn't exist. So, it was trying to be helpful. It was trying to give me what I asked for. But when it couldn't find it, it just kind of made it up because it's a predictive model, right? So it has an algorithm where it gives the best shot of what comes next. And so it did that, and it wasn't true. If I would have taken those sources and actually published them, that would have been awful. It would have been horrendous, and I never would have written another word again in my life.
Hmm.
So, yes, Be very careful on what it tells you. When you ask it for specific information, if it's stats or something like that, always check. So Gemini, Google's version of AI, has an actual Google search button right in it where you can actually, so if you click that, it will double check the information it gave you on the internet and give and find you sources that backs up what it said, if they exist. So that's one way that Google's trying to help us.
Thank you.
But bring your minds. I mean, this is all this is your stories. These are your words. Make sure that they say what you want them to say, not what AI has for them to say. Now, that said, use AI as an editor. Like I said, if you need a proofreader, any large language model will do you well, and it will save you some money. So let's talk about the heart of what we write for a minute here. I asked it ChatGPT to give me a story. You can see the prompt that I used on the screen. I did start out with asking it for a 500 word story, but it was a little bit long and boring, so I cut it to 300 words. And I'll read that to you right now. You can follow along if you follow the bit.ly link that you see on your screen. That will take you right to my ChatGPT discussion. And all I asked, the only change I made was asked it to cut it down to 300 words.
The link isn't live, so we'll just listen to you. I can type that up in the chat while you're talking if you're gonna leave that screen on.
If you wouldn't mind, that'd be
Yeah,
great.
no,
That
I can
would
do
be,
that.
yeah, I'll leave the screen. All right, so it's called the Shovel of Destiny. In a small town of Willowdrop, Harvey Snodgrass was not known for his bravery. He was known for his terrible vegetable garden. That's why, on a crisp autumn morning, he was out back with his rusting shovel, swearing at a carrot that had bested him yet again. Thunk! Harvey froze. The shovel struck something solid. His heart raced, though he immediately told it to calm down. It was probably just a rock, or worse, more carrots. Digging deeper, he unearthed a shimmering object wrapped in moss. It looked like a golden shovel. A diamond gleamed at its tip, and the handle was engraved with strange runes. A faint hum filled the air. Oh no, Harvey muttered. Magic? Me? I'm not even qualified to cook soup. But as he picked up the shovel, a surge of power raced through him. Without thinking, he sang. And I'm not going to sing, I'm going to read. A spade of gold in dirt it lay, unearthed to shape the hero's day. With diamonds bright and power untold, I'll dig my way through fates foretold. He paused. Why am I rhyming? The shovel answered by glowing brighter and yanking him toward the edge of his yard. There he found a portal swirling with green and blue light. Harvey Snodgrass, wielder of digging spade of destiny, a booming voice declared, "You must save the realm of Molkovia." Molkovia? Harvey asked, stifling a laugh. Do I get frequent flyer miles? The voice ignored him. Only you can find the sacred compost heap and restore balance. With a sigh, Harvey stepped through the portal. Well, he said, grinning, guess I'll finally grow something worth talking about. And thus began the most bizarre garden related adventure in history. That's the story I mean, it's not bad. You know, ChatGPT did a fairly good job of the mechanics of a story and taking us through, an adventure. But I want you to notice how it lacks emotional depth and it lacks the twists that we love in a good story. There's no real emotional connection to connect us with Harvey. He appears to have a great sense of humor, but there's not much depth there. We don't see a real person. It's, kind of a shadow. The humor's clever, I'll admit, but not that clever. I mean, it's kind of corny. But the rest falls flat without descriptive detail about the setting, right? We don't know a lot about what's Malkovia? There's no, the chat GPT could have said where this is, where we're going, right? We don't really have a roadmap there to follow. So
Mhm.
for me, it isn't compelling. It doesn't allow me to connect with Harvey as a real person, not like I was connecting to your stories. And those were, for the most part, first drafts and really well done. So now you can see, like, I always say AI is really good at being mediocre. This is a mediocre story that it's the bare bones of something that could be good. So as a writer, we could take that and we could make something great out of it. But it's going to take us to do that. ChatGPT's role is done now. It's not going to do much more than that. So now I want to know, what did you guys notice in that story? What's your take on it? How do you feel that ChatGPT, how did it do?
Mhm. The Stone of Destiny is a movie about a true story. That they steal back their Stone of Destiny. Was that Ireland stealing back from Scotland or Scotland the other way? But anyway, yeah. So I could see the references to what has been in the cultural lexicon. Um,
Exactly.
mhm,
And that's bias coming into what's happening here, right? So all AI is biased. Whatever's happening on the internet at the time that it was trained, it's going to pick up on those things. And in academia, this is a huge concern
mhm,
because as academics, we want to eliminate bias. We're doing research that we want to be helpful, and we don't want it to subjugate any, one person or group of people. And we're seeing now that as we're using it more and more, some of these biases are coming through.
mhm,
And so, again, we have to bring our minds and our brains to it. And like you said, Rusty, I mean, if you noticed that this was picking up on some of the things happening, someone else is going to notice it. And if we put our name to this, if I
mhm.
put my name to this right now, you could say to me, hey, you know what? That story's been done. It
Yes.
looks like you're copying this or that. So we need to be aware of that sort of thing. That's why I always don't use it to generate a story.
Mhm.
Use it to make your story better.
And it's also exactly what you said, Barbara, saying that it lacked an authentic writer's voice. It's like it's missing a soul. And you were saying that the writers this morning, they it can't replace the heart and soul, the way that our minds and our hearts and our souls, our spirits, put things together that grab us, like the morning's writing did. So yeah.
That's right. Oh, hang on here. I skipped one. So let's talk about the future. I hope you guys can see a way that you can use some of these tools in what you do. I hope you can see that it can be a tool for good, that, it can augment what you do. It can help you analyze what you produce. It can help you make it better. But you know what? No matter how advanced AI gets, it's not going to be like the Terminator, where, the great big machines come back to kill off humanity because they think they're better. That's never going to happen because machines can never replace a human, ever. We just, the way we think, it's just not, we can't put that into an algorithm.
Hmm.
But we can use AI. I think we can use it to connect with our author, with our readers better. If we know who our readers are, or you know what, even if we don't know who our readers are, maybe you have a story and you don't really know who would really want to read this, you can actually ask AI to help you figure that out. It's really good at doing that.
I think I'd
I
like
do
to
that in
use
my work.
I think I'd like to use AI to tell me how a title compares to best-selling titles for a certain genre of a book. I could see myself using it that way because it would be able to search for the best-selling titles and look at the skew and the balance and the subtitle and the title. And I think, and I have used a titling app to look at, chapter titles and book titles and see what scores really high. So that
And
I
that is a
definitely,
form of using AI.
hmm
That's
yeah.
actually a form of AI, right? So,
Mhm.
so think AI is artificial intelligence. It's the great big umbrella term that we use.
Okay, Amy just asked.
Generative,
Amy just
yeah, so
asked if
generative.
it's considering cheating. Sorry, this isn't considered cheating to make your writing better.
No, it's not. It's not considered cheating. So is it considered cheating if I wrote a poem and I gave it to Rusty and said, Rusty, I don't know where to go with this next? Is that cheating?
No, because I'm an editor. And you've hired me to do that, to give you feedback on your poem, which I do with poetry with people. So
And
Oh, yeah, I
and
know that's
isn't
why I
that
used you.
isn't that
I'm a
isn't
bad
that
poet. I don't write poetry.
yeah.
But you know what? I actually write some fun poetry. So when I meet with people in my business, in my consulting business, when I meet with new clients, I will record the conversation. And I actually have ChatGPT turn that into a poem. And it comes up with some pretty interesting and funny and enjoyable ways to remember a meeting that we had.
Mhm.
And I'll do this for
Yeah.
this too. So again,
Amy,
I asked,
got a further question for you.
yeah, you mentioned that it doesn't take away jobs, but
nope,
doesn't that kind of take away an editor's job?
but it doesn't because it's not an editor. Okay, so I can take it, so I can use AI to take it to the best place I can take it with. But if it was a poem, I would still go to an expert like Rusty and get her input on it
Okay.
because she's the expert. AI is not the expert. Here's another example. I hate budgeting. I'm not a numbers person, but now with AI, I can have a good grasp of what a budget should be on a project I'm working on, and it gives me enough of a base understanding that I can talk to the budget person and actually understand what's going on. But I still need that budget person. What AI gives me is it won't be good enough. It won't know all of the intricacies of the project like a project manager or budget person would. So it can give you a new level of understanding into areas that you're not familiar with, but it's still not the expert, right? You're going to always want to go to another human.
Okay, so all right, I think you just answered my question. I was going to say psychology, the psychology of a situation where if you can say something to the right person that guides them in a different direction, they're misguided, and you're trying to guide them in a better direction.
Hmm,
So it's psychology because we're human beings, we're not machines, we're not computers.
that's right.
That's a limitation for AI.
It's a big limitation. And yes,
Okay.
you've got right to the heart of it there.
Hmm.
It's pretty cool to play around with and but I mean I've no so like I said, I wrote a book. I used AI to outline that book. The book looks absolutely nothing like it did originally, but it was a great place to start. I've done the same with this presentation. So I have larger presentations that I've got a 2 hour workshop that I do. I asked AI to say, okay, I need a 15 to 20-minute presentation based on all of this information, go. So
Hmm.
it gave me a really great outline and I used about 25% of what it gave me and then changed the rest.
Hmm.
But it gave me a place to distill everything. And it's all my work, right? It's not AI's work. It's my work that is analyzing and giving it to me in what I asked for.
All right,
So
let's go to
that's
Bill's question. Bill's got his hand raised. We'll just make questions part of your presentation. You can continue
yeah,
on in between, but yeah, this is good. Great. Bill, go ahead.
no, this
Uh,
is perfect.
I just had a bit of an epiphany, and it goes to the practical application of things like car bodies. So just stay with me just for a second. I'll do this quickly. When cars come off the assembly line, they look pretty good. But when a custom car is done in an auto body shop where that last layer of work is done by a man or a woman, hand sanding that finish and then sanding between the coats of paint, you can't get that finish from an automatic car that goes through any kind of process. It and then what changes too? I can buy the car for $30,000, but if it's custom made, it's way more than that because it needs Bob or Sally or Frank or George or Rebecca to do that finishing. And I think the same thing holds when you look at some people that do crocheting or all.
Knitting?
You can see machine stuff and it looks pretty good, but when somebody's hand done it, it's magic. So I think there's a place. You've softened my edge on looking at this AI thing. I came in with a level of contempt and disdain that was fairly high. So just so you're aware of that, I can see getting it like what you just said to bring it into your life, and then you write what you want to write from that. What are the 10 things I should do about X? I think that's brilliant. I'm still reluctant to put my book back into it and say, give me a sense of this and see what I need to fix. Because I don't want that out in the world. Not like that. Once I've written the book and put it out, okay, well, then people can take and steal it and all they want. Because the R&D, which is part of what this is, goes to even my stuff around teaching people to speak better about how to deliver information, goes to rob and duplicate. It doesn't mean research stuff. So,
No, I
yeah.
think there's definitely a role that you could use it with your book. So, Bill, I would encourage you to just write something fanciful. Take 20 minutes and, I don't know, write a poem or, write a short story, or take something that we've worked on here today and get ChatGPT, turn off and afterwards I can send you instructions if you like on how to turn off that private or turn on the privacy setting so that it doesn't get used to train other models or other instances of ChatGPT, and just play around with it and see how it can help you make things better. You don't have to use your whole book as a example. I mean, you could even take just maybe one chapter or 3 pages of your book, and you can go through the same exercises and get yourself familiar with what it can do to help you make your writing better.
I'm up to try that. A concern I have is like this is a perfect example. Ask not what you can do for what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. It's been ascribed to John F. Kennedy.
Mm-hmm.
It's not true. It was Seneca of ancient Greece. And no one can change that now because it's out in the world and it's the truth. I hate
Because
that.
we remember the truth, the more it's said. I mean, take a look at what's happening in politics all over the world. The more our politicians say something, the more people believe it. And it can be, and we've seen examples of it being completely untrue in
Yes.
Canada and the US, especially, and in some cases in the UK, where they are saying things, and the more they say it, the more people believe it and the more people follow it. All they have to do is keep saying the same story,
Yes. So
right?
that's troublesome to me. That's why my relationship with technology is a love-hate for sure. In some places, I totally get it. Even sanding the fender of the car, you still need a belt sander or an orbital sander. You still need that. It's a tool. I got it. But with this stuff, my archaic, yeah, my old age is showing because there's a part of me just rolls my eyes and shakes my head.
But
And
if
I have
I
an
can make
editor.
it if I can make it save you time, Bill, so that you can paint more or that you can write more, wouldn't you want to use that tool?
Well, that's not even a fair question. I totally understand what you just said, but my goodness. Yes,
Here's
I get.
something on the politics end of it. None of the AIs will answer any political questions.
Ah, but they did this one that I thought was hilarious. A bunch of people said, "Is there a God?" And it answered this. It
But
was
that's not a
brilliant.
political question.
Oh, no, I understand, but here's what happened with it. It answered that absolutely the whole universe is created by God, and it went through this whole litany. And I've got a couple of agnostic friends, and I've even got atheists that looked at that and went, "That's crap."
I'm
So
married
there's a
to the
place.
son of a Baptist minister. Does
Yeah,
that count?
yeah. So am I. So there's a place that my confidence in it is not as strong as some people would like it to be, and I do think it's a good tool. I don't dispute that. I'm just not certain that I would want to use it after I'm done. And I have a spectacular editor who's leading me along this golden path. So
Oh, nice.
yeah.
But there is a dark side to all of this, though, Bill, and you've kind of alluded to it. Recently, there has been in Florida a teenager who was interacting with an AI committed suicide. It's before the courts. His mother has taken this to the court in Florida and asking for some sort of resolution because she wants the AI to become responsible. So again, we go back to it's a predictive model. It only works with what we've given it. But if it's going to lead us down a path to say, kill yourself, this is something that we have to address, and we have to address now. We can't wait for courts, and we can't wait for other people to create legislation to bring these companies to account. So the only way at this point that we can address some of these things is by understanding how it works, understanding how it can work for us, and using it in a responsible and ethical manner. We have to teach people how to do that, though. We can't just leave it in the hands. So part of my life's mission with academics is teaching them, because like, quite frankly, students have been using AI to write their essays and their homework for years now. It's not something new, but we don't have the tools to say, it's not like plagiarism. We've got tools in place that we can feed essays in and it can detect plagiarism. But that's not always 100% true either. We have nothing that can do the same thing for AI generated content. And here's our conundrum, right? So just because, and it always comes back to me, it's like, just because we can doesn't mean we should, right? Should we take this further? Should we allow AI further into our lives? Should we? So, it's something that bigger brains than mine are going to figure out eventually, but it's going to take time. So, but in the meantime, AI is not going to replace you, but you know what? Someone who knows how to use these tools to make themselves better may replace you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And it goes to your conversation that the government's always about 10 years behind or never catches up. So I think
Yeah.
that's also part of this. But yeah, and we tend to do things. You think the Manhattan Project and stuff like that. We tend to do things, and the scientists in particular, and this is where the AI thing for me is a bit of a wrestle. Scientists say it's not my responsibility, it's not my obligation to figure out what you're going to do to apply this. The atomic bomb is brilliant. They said, no, don't do this, and they went and did it anyway. And so there is a place in this. I do not know where this could ultimately end up, and I am a bit fearful about that. So and
You're right.
that's my own shit. So I get that.
No, you're right to be, because I mean, if we think about what's happened, let's go back to our political example, what's been happening in the last 10 years with misinformation. AI now has the ability to give those people more power to deliver and to do the nefarious things that they were doing to affect elections. So our governments and the people that we give, our proxy to make these decisions to have to be aware of this. But I'm not convinced that they are, or that they're taking it seriously enough. Because when we start having kids commit suicide because they're interacting with basically a chatbot, this is a huge sign. This is the canary in the coal mine, right? So now we have to really be considerate about what we're doing and what we're using it for and what we're training it to do. But that doesn't take away the power that we have to use these tools to embetter us. So as writers, this is a topic we could be writing on. And we could be using AI to help us figure out which subjects we should write on in this area. We can use AI to figure out if we're writing in, so I work in knowledge mobilization, which is basically an academic fancy word of saying that I communicate better than other people. And I can translate really big reports into understandable language. I can use AI to figure out in which genre people are talking about this topic and what should I write to address these issues. What are the issues? I can use AI to say, any given morning, try this, Bill. I'll give you homework. Try this, everybody. Use ChatGPT, and in whatever area you're living in, ask it what the top 5 news stories are of that day. And pick one of those news stories and go off and read it and come back to AI and say, okay, here's my opinion on this issue. Help me create a response that I can share on LinkedIn about this issue. And you will have something fabulous in like 10 minutes that you can now edit and share on LinkedIn and work to become a thought leader in that particular area. AI can help you do that. It's helping you gather that knowledge, but it's still you doing the work. It's not AI doing the work.
But isn't there a potential here? And I guess this is, well, I'm not trying to hijack this thing. These are just curious
Mhm.
things.
Oh, this is
So
good.
the Fleisch test was a brilliant concept. You can write to grade six or you can write to grade eights, which most of our newspapers do. And they do it quite pathetically, actually. And then you get the Globe and Mail, which ramps it up a little bit to grade 11. And then you've got academia when they write stuff. And I'm really reasonably smart. And I read some academic papers, and it's like, I'm a paragraph in. I have no idea what they're talking about. No clue. Because they've upped the game in whatever fashion. I think we're dumbing our games down. And then we've also got this generalization conversation that happens that, I mean, I even wrestle with this with Rusty. I've got some 50-word sentences in here. I think they're pretty good. But that's a fucking long
Keep
sentence.
popping them, right?
Yeah. And she's going, she doesn't say, don't do this. She just says that, in fact, here's one here. It's wordy, it's beautiful, it's vague simultaneously. So and so I'm looking at that, and she doesn't like my adverbs, but that's a whole other conversation. But the premise of this, there's the potential that we continue to dumb our game down, and that's worrisome to me. I mean, I'm listening to some.
Well,
Okay, Michael Singer, amazing. He's just an amazing guy. His books don't touch what he does when he does a body of work, when he does a
yeah.
project with somebody in the room. Like it's dumbed down, and it's troublesome. It's just
I
troublesome.
would say I'm not, I really absolutely hate that term dumbed down. And I have academics talk to me about that every
I
single
apologize.
that they no, no, this is a personal pet peeve of mine, but it's understandable to how you come to use that term.
Yes.
When I take, some big scientific research report about, I mean, there's research reports. Oh, here's one that I read recently. It's about how people who listen to heavy metal actually process emotions better than people who do not listen to heavy metal. And it's an actual scientific study. I can send it to you. It's awesome because I listen to heavy metal, so I look for this stuff. And a lot of my colleagues don't listen to heavy metal, but I'm trying to convert them. I know I don't look like that type of person, but yeah, I'm a headbanger from way back. So I find stuff like this, and it. Thank you, Bill. Not a lot of people come to that same humorous output as you just did. But you know what? I say to people that when we think about these things, and when we think about how people understand information, how people receive information, it's not dumbing it down. I'm taking what's important out of all of those words that they put together, that Rusty took out the important bits of what you were trying to say and got you to focus in really on what you were really trying to say and making that useful for your reader. Right. So when we think about writing, yes, we all have those brilliant sentences that we think are like beautiful, and we can never get rid of them. We can't kill them off because they're just, I mean, we put so much heart and soul into that sentence when ultimately it's going to probably land flat on your reader. And that's where Rusty comes in, and she's going to save you from that. Right. So
That's
instead of
scary.
dumbing it down, she's actually giving you the ability to raise it up and to wrap it in different language, that same concept. And that's actually what I do for academics right there. What Rusty does for you, that's what I do for academics. I make it understandable. If it's a research report about, community schools and their role in your community and how they lift up your community, moms and dads, single parents or people who have 4 kids, they don't care about the research report. They don't care about the pie charts. They don't care about the data. They want to know how it's useful to them, how it's going to impact them. That's my job. That's what I translate those, 50-page reports into. And that's what Rusty's job is for you.
That's
So,
definitely true,
but
and she's got a daunting task ahead of her. So
Those damn 50-word sentences.
but
and
you know what?
not
It's a
one.
different
There's
set of
about 12
skills.
in it. Anyway, yes.
It's a different set of skills, and not all writers have that set of skills. And that's why we need a Rusty.
Yes. I
And
agree.
but bringing AI back to the conversation, we can use AI to kind of sort through the bulk of that and come to a different place with your piece before you send it to Rusty,
Yeah.
which in turn makes Rusty's job just a little bit easier.
Yeah.
I'm approve
And
of
it
that.
gives you a
I
better
approve of
place.
Yeah. And just I'll pull myself out of this. Just so you know what they call woodpecker without a beak. It's a headbanger. I just thought I'd pass that on
I heard that
and
one
let you
before
know.
too. Listen, I used to have the hair down to my waist. I used to have the leather wardrobe. I used to go around to concerts. I miss those days. I did not see Kiss on its last tour because my ears cannot take the amount of blowing stuff up that happens in those concerts. I can't take the noise level anymore, so I don't go to the concerts anymore. But yeah, that's who I am at my core. That's where my happy place was. Kiss and Iron Maiden together, one of the best
Oh,
concerts
Bonnie, you've
ever.
inspired Abika to use AI to write pitches and overviews. That's awesome.
Actually, you know what? I have worked with a couple of academics recently, Albica, about using AI to write their grant proposals, but not to like initially write them, to help them write them. Because a grant proposal is the same thing as a book proposal. It's really about your passion and getting your passion through, and it's about convincing the granting agency to give you money to fund this multi-year program. Now, AI can give them a great place to start and it answers a whole bunch of questions, but there is a role there to help you do that. And I'd love to see what you come up with. Use Chat. Actually, for all of you guys, I would suggest start with Chat GPT. It's the one that sounds most human. It's the one that um, typically doesn't throw a lot of bias your way to start with, but the bias does creep in, so just be aware of that.
Mhm. Yeah.
Now, if you are a subscriber to Microsoft, use Microsoft Copilot. It's pretty good, but it's really great. I don't know how many of you know anything about code, computer code. Microsoft Copilot is the best at giving you computer code. Like it could give you the HTML of a website that you could copy and then produce. Um, yeah, it's great at that, but it's also pretty good at other stuff. And it's fully baked into your Microsoft environment. If you're a Google person like me, it's Gemini. Gemini is baked into the Google environment. So it works with your email, it works with your documents and your spreadsheets and all of the stuff that you have in your Google ecosystem. There's a whole bunch of others out there, and there's literally hundreds of new ones on the scene every single day.
Mhm.
There is if you look for, it's called, there's an AI for that. It's a website that actually will call the best or pull out the best of what's being produced every day and what you can use it for. So there's hundreds, there's thousands, there's millions by now, and there's no end in sight. So like I said, there's a link in the presentation that Rusty will send to you afterwards. It's on the page you see on your screen right now. And it's a list of the 10 tools that I've used in my own writing practice. And so you can maybe start there. There's also a larger list that I've sent to Rusty of over 100 AI tools that I've tested out and collected, and even show you how to sort of manipulate that list with some of the prompts that I use to come up with, like organizing it thematically, organizing it for different professions, like organizing a list of over 100 tools it would take you days, weeks to do it individually and to come up with like the different categories. Whereas AI did it literally, and I think I spent 20 minutes on it to,
Mhm.
refocus it in different ways.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Barbara,
I'm always around. Have questions, you can send me your questions. My email's on the screen there.
yeah,
Keep it
Bonnie at
handy.
bonniezink.com. Very easy to remember. Barbara asked, does Chat GPT cost money? There are some free versions, aren't there?
Okay, yes, I don't pay for any AI tools, and I'm using all sorts of them all the time. I don't believe we should be paying for them. Chat GPT gives you access, and it's the one that's actually kind of most friendly in this way, that it will keep the previous version free to use. And you are limited, so it will give you access to the most current version, which is 4.0. I know. So you have a certain amount of access to that. When you're interacting with AI, it's on a basis of what's called tokens. So each task you ask it to do uses up a certain amount of tokens. You have a certain amount of tokens available for each conversation. So there are tips and tricks to kind of extend those tokens. You can, have 3 or 4 conversations going on to get to the information you really want to have it addressed. And then you can pull the information in from those conversations into a new conversation, which actually resets your tokens. So you can get kind of more bang for your buck. Don't pay for them. Unless you have a finished novel, that's like Stephen King length and you need a whole bunch of processing power, you aren't going to need to pay for these tools. And every one has a free version. There's one out there I was playing with this week about for video presentations. And you know how YouTube and everybody has reels or shorts or whatever. There's a program and it's called Opus Clip. And it takes your longer video and it finds the most brilliant pieces of what you were talking about and turns them into reels and shorts and for you. You don't have to go through and cut them out yourself. So it saves you weeks of time right there. So it's pretty cool. Like there's lots of them out there. And if you guys find some that you're using that you stumble across that seem really cool, I'd love to know about them too. Because this is, like I said, it's a Wild West. Nobody has the answers here. We all have to just kind of figure out what works for us and do that. Experiment with it. Put it to the test. Email the creators and say, hey, why can't it do this? Then you can become a beta tester and then you get full access for free. That's what I do anyway. I don't know, Hootsuite. Does anybody use Hootsuite or do you know what Hootsuite is? Hootsuite is a social media manager that manages all of them in one place. And it started in the basement, in a Vancouver basement way back when. And I got in and I still have full access to Hootsuite because I was a beta tester and I don't pay for it. So yes, do not spend your money on these tools unless, of course, you want to take it to the next level and you really find it necessary. But I don't think you will. Like I said, I will send you lots of information to get started with. And I do encourage you at least once a day, have a conversation with your AI of choice.
AI, my great niece asked when her mom and dad split, she said, hey Siri, can you help my mom and dad get back together?
Ah, there you go. And what did it say? Did it work?
Siri just answered right now. If you think it could be serious, ask me to call emergency service or someone you trust. I should have turned her off or put away somewhere. But hey, Siri,
my Siri reacted too.
Yeah. So anyway, Siri answered her very, very empathically. I was pretty impressed, saying, "I'm sorry, I can't help you with that." And it was, yeah. So
our AIs are getting better at being empathic, but you know what? Empathy is a human emotion. It's not.
No.
So Siri, when you look at what's going on behind, it just found the best answer to give as an example, right? So,
yeah.
Yeah. And these tools work best when you do give them examples. And you'll see once you take a look through the book that Rusty will send you, you'll see how to craft your queries to be most effective.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, what you get out of these tools is only as good as what you give it. It's like everything, the effort you put in increases as the outputs increase based on that. But have any of you really had we all know what AI is now, but have any of you used any of it, even just a little bit? Teresa, what was your experience like?
I quite enjoyed it, actually. I didn't mind it at all. But then I also I get an email every month of all the new AI that's come out or what the progressions have been on them. And it's a newsletter I get every week. And so he also teaches you how to craft your requests. So sometimes it's in that we think we're asking one thing, but AI will take it as a totally different thing because it's not getting the gist. Because we speak as if you can read my face and my hands and what I'm doing, right? That we accept all the body language and the expression in our faces as part of our whole conversation. That's part of us. Whereas AI gets just the words.
Yeah.
It doesn't get anything else. So he was explaining that when you're looking for something that you think has some meaning to it, you have to tell it what you're looking for, because it doesn't have the ability to read your body or your face or understand your emotional requests, because it doesn't have any of that. It's just a flat surface. It's like looking at the flat surface of a lake. You know, there's a ton of shit underneath.
And if you go back to the prompt there that I gave to develop that story, right? So you can see where I told it, I told it what to act like. I told it to act like a writer, with 20 years experience, and, 5 novels and a book of poetry. So it's a very experienced writer, now acting as an editor. And then I told it what I wanted it to do. And then I told it how I wanted it to do it. And I even included an example of what I wanted it to give, like a song in poetry format, a song that rhymes. So, and then that's what it gave us. And as you saw from the output, it wasn't really great, right? So I've got some work to do on my prompt to make it even better. And so when we really think that through, my process is I develop it in a Word document first. And I really think it's, and some prompts can be like paragraphs long. You're not limited by, most of them aren't, you're not limited by word count, but you don't want it to be 10,000 words either.
Yeah,
You
but
want it
Bonnie, you do have to be a little bit careful in not doing repetitive repeating of what you want either. So make sure you've got a concise idea, because it's no more than like whatever you put into a computer, you're going to get back out of it. It's the same thing. I think for me, between Zoho and Grammarly, I go back and forth because one is good in one area, but the other is better in the opposing area. So if you're doing some editing, using not just one platform to get it, you've got to remember Grammarly has some of the capabilities of giving some of those emotional things because it's working with writers.
That's right.
But Zoho gives you, I mean, it is strictly flat what it can do, and it's that way. It's just this sentence makes perfect sense. This is too long. It doesn't fit the norm. It's got this wrong with it, or it should have this. You've got too many adjectives in that line. So you have to kind of go back and forth and find which one, and it might be a combination of more than one before you get where you want to be with what you're writing.
Yes. Oh, you're so right. You can even have it address, Bill, this is for you, your adverb problem. I don't agree with adverbs either. So
hang on. It is not a problem. Okay. I don't know what you guys are up against here. I have wonderful, by the way, I've used ChatGPT and it said the same thing, because sometimes I'll list 5 or 6 or 7 because I'm poking fun, right? And it'll say, I would change this to this, and it's one adverb or something. It's pretty funny. I write politically correct bedtime stories, fractured fairy tales, and I submitted one. It was a little short one. I'm happy to share it, but I've submitted it. And I should have taken a picture of it. It came back, what? It was the best. It's absolutely the best.
That's awesome. But I mean, there's ways you can actually make that useful, though.
Yes,
Bill.
absolutely.
You could have given it a prompt that told it to act like a seasoned editor and play that role and deconstruct what you gave it so that it's useful commentary on how you can rebuild it and make it better.
It has no sense of humor and no soul, and I'm clear about that. But if I'm looking for that, if I'm expecting that, then I've got the wrong tool in front of me. So
that's right. There are tools out there, though, that will actually take what you've written and rephrase it in a sarcastic manner. There is one.
Not much more sarcastically than I can be. I think that would be a real.
I'm married to a sarcastic man too, so yeah, I just usually ignore it. I have selective hearing after this many years of marriage.
Oh, Bonnie, you've given us so much and so much. Does anyone have any last minute questions for Bonnie? I think we've answered most of them in the chat. If I missed any, because I can do that, please pop off mute and ask away. I am so grateful to see that
Like
you've inspired a few
email me
people.
whenever you like.
Yep.
Don't hesitate. That's my life's work now, is to help folks like you kind of embrace technology and get your stories out there.
Yeah.
That's what
Wonderful.
thrills me. And I will pop in again tomorrow, but I am going to pop off here
Mm-hmm.
and go off to a board meeting, Saskatchewan Book Awards. Pretty exciting. We've got some really exciting literature that we're reviewing this time around for 2025, uh, focusing on local authors, which is another one of my.
Mm-hmm.
I love just helping people get their voice and get it out there. And you may not agree. I think I'm the only Saskatchewan girl here, but Saskatchewan has the most active Writers Guild per capita than any of the other ones across the country. So
Well,
it's pretty
Teresa's on
exciting
the
to be
border.
part of
She's on the border. She's on Lloydminster on the Alberta side, so she's close to you.
it.
I'd like you to stop share so
Nice.
that we can give you jazz hands and applause so that we can see that. And thank you very much for the excellent presentation and answering the
Oh,
questions
thank
thoughtfully, wisely, and with consideration. So it was awesome to have you. You prepared so much value for us. I really appreciate that. And
oh,
everyone, let's give some jazz hands to
thank
Bonnie,
you.
and we'll
Thank
see
you so
you.
much for having me.
We'll see you tomorrow
It's
then.
always
Good luck at the Saskatchewan Book Awards.
awesome. Thank you.
All right. Bye for now.